How do I start this? Okay, so essentially, I think I hinted at like getting really, really good news a while ago. Like, when was it? Like August? And I said, like, I was telling you guys like something really good happened to me, but I couldn't share what. Do you remember that? And it was just like something really important in my life. And then I was just like, I don't, it basically was very personal to me and has to do with my family. So then I was like, I don't want to share it because I don't even know how I feel about it yet. Obviously it was like a really big thing for me and still is. So I was like, I just want to make sure I digest the feelings about it myself and make sure I feel right about it before like saying anything publicly. But it's been months now and I'm like, feel a lot better about it. I feel better about sharing it because you know, when something's good, I guess in my life, when something is good, I'm scared talking about it publicly will make it bad, if that makes sense, or will change it, especially if because of the way things happened, I was worried. But you guys are probably like, bro, just say it. Or like, what are you alluding to? Okay, so basically, essentially, back in August, okay, let me give some background. For those of you who don't know, I have 2 parents. Whoa, crazy. I've got a mom and a dad, right? And I have a brother, okay? And a lot of you guys probably know, I've shared about my brother, is that we don't talk. We have like no negative, zero relationship. We have not had one for my entire life. We basically, when I was, I don't know what happened, but when I was like 6 or 7, he was like, we just kind of got into, there was a lot of fighting between us. I just remember like, we got along for a bit, maybe for like 2 years of my life before I could even remember. And then we just stopped getting along. And then I tried to like make it work for a bit. I sent him presents like during Christmas and he would just reject them. And essentially I went from trying to just, I gave up. And I just thought that I was kind of the annoying sibling. I remember being called annoying a lot, not just by him, but like just people around me. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna not push this. So essentially 20 years pass. I come home every single year, see my brother. We don't talk. I go back home. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And I just got used to this. I've shared many times on many a podcast, to my roommates. It's just a known thing. I don't have a relationship with my brother. Zero negative. But it's weird because every single time I come home for Thanksgiving, for example, like right now, I see him. It's not like he's like distance from my whole family. It's just that me and him don't talk. So one time I remember in 2019, I was living with the sushi dragon and I took him to meet my brother because my family was in town and my mom's like, come over to your brother's place. I was like, okay. And Stefan was like, can I go? And I was like, yeah, sure, I guess. And he's like, no, I just want to see like your brother. He seems so cool. He's got this warehouse, yada, yada, yada. So like, yeah, sure, you can come. So Stefan comes over and meets my brother. And within 5 minutes, they're like yapping, just talking. And I was looking at them and they start talking about Shokugeki and like random anime and like just stuff. And I was like so jealous. I was just like, how have you talked to my brother more than I have talked to him my entire life within 5 minutes of meeting him? Like I have not said like more than a minute of words to him. And you've already said like 5 minutes of, and then at 30 minutes, and they just clicked. And I was like, wow, love that for you, I guess. But I felt this like feeling of like sadness watching it because I was just there and I wanted to tell him how good the fish he made was. He made like mackerel and it was so good. And he's like an insanely good cook. And I like couldn't tell him that because I just didn't know how to say it. So I just like was like, wow, this is really good. But like I would say it to my mom and then like he'd hear it. Stuff like that. Okay. So fast forward essentially to this past August. No, July. So 6 months ago about, I was streaming. Okay. Oh, no. Rewind. 1 year ago. Okay. I'm in the house and Tina's visiting, I think for the holidays. And there's a stream that we did when we're like during Christmas. And Tina asked me about, sorry, 1 second. I lost chat. Yeah. Okay, so back to it. Okay, so Tina asked me about my brother, and I was like, yeah, we don't have a relationship. It's just how it is. And I was like, I really would love to, but lost it again. So sorry. Okay. Okay. I don't know if you guys remember it, but sorry, back. Okay. So I was talking and I was telling her, I wish I did. I really think what he does is so cool. But yeah, I just don't have a relationship with him. And Tina was like, oh my God, like, that's really sad. And she's like, well, maybe one day, we'll all get a beer together or something, a beer and burgers. I forgot what she said, but something along those lines. And I was like, yeah, maybe one day. And that was about a year ago. Fast forward to July. All right. So I'm in July. I'm streaming. All right. I am doing my normal thing. I end stream and I check my email. Okay. And it's an email and it's titled like, hey, it's Nathaniel. And that's my brother's name. And I was like, what? And my heart like literally dropped to my butt. Like my heart just like sank in the best way. Like I was like what? Like it didn't like process it. I couldn't process to be like that was when my brother had emailed me. So I clicked on it and it was a short but sweet email essentially just saying like, hey, I came across this clip. Like someone sent me this clip and it was a 3-minute YouTube video that some random person uploaded of me and Tina talking. And it was me telling Tina, and it was really hard to watch actually, like knowing my brother had seen it. Cause like, when like, I don't know, like I talk to people sometimes and I don't ever expect them to see what I was talking, like, you know what I mean? So he was like, I saw this and I didn't know you felt this way. And he's like, I'm so sorry. Like I withdrew from you and I'm so sorry. Like, he's like, I can't believe how well you articulated how you felt. And I didn't know you felt this way. And I didn't know you wanted to like be friends. And he's like, I'd like to be friends. And I was like, bro, like it's crazy talking about it now because in the moment, like I've read this email out to like Myung and Tina and like all my roommates and stuff. I've read it to them. And every time I read it, like I just start crying. I was like, I remember reading it to Tina and Tina just starts sobbing. She's like, oh my God. And I was like, yeah. Anyway, so when I read it, like as I was reading it, I just started crying. Like I instantly started sobbing. Like I couldn't breathe. I was like, what? And I called my parents instantly. And I was like, I got an email and Nathaniel messaged me and my parents were so happy and I couldn't believe it. I was so happy like that it happened. I dreamed about this moment like for so long. I dreamed about it happening. I'd literally have this frequent dream where I'd be going to bed or I was in bed and then not the dream I'm in bed. No. In the dream, I'm not in bed. I'm in bed and then the dream comes and I'm in my car or a car. I'm in the back seat and he's like turns around and talks to me in my dream. And we have a normal relationship in my dream. And he's just like, hey, do you need this? Or like, hey, like put your seatbelt on or something. And I would just wake up and I'd be really sad that was like not our relationship. I was like, oh, never mind. It's not real. So, anyways, so what was I saying? Okay. So yeah, he emailed me and it was like, and he wrote at the end and it said like, I don't know like how you feel about everything. Take all the time you need. And when he said that, like, it was weird. Like, I just knew he sincerely meant that. Like, in a way that like, if I wasn't ready to reply to his email in like a whole year's time, he'd be okay with it. Like, I just knew he really meant like, take all the time you need to reply because it might be a lot. And it was a lot. Like I didn't reply for a week. I just like sat on it and thought on it. And I talked to my therapist about it. And I was like, I don't know, like anyone who has a situation like this, what is the proper way to start a relationship with your brother? Like how do I become friends with him? So we decided, like I texted him and we decided on a date to meet, right? And that date was August 14th. And I was so freaking nervous about it. Chat died again, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm just gonna move here. Okay. So, hello, testing. Okay, sorry about the fan. So, okay, that day was August 14th. And I couldn't tell you how nervous I was. Like, I was so nervous going to his place. I had ended stream, I think, that day, and I didn't tell anybody about it. I was just, he's older. He's like 6 years older than me. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna go over. He lives kind of far from me, so it was like a nice long drive. I was listening to folklore. But I was listening to Taylor Swift, just like kind of just trying to like really remember how this feeling would feel. Cause I was like, this is the first time I'm going to talk to him in my whole life. And, I don't know how to greet him. I was overthinking everything. I was like, do I hug him? What our first words going to be? What do we talk about? Do we talk about our parents? Do we talk about our childhood? Do I tell him about streaming? What does he know about streaming? Does he like know what I do? Does he even remember what?
Chat. This time I died.
I get to his place, okay? I filmed a video to myself because I wanted to like remember how I felt, and maybe I'll share it with you one day, but I was just like, this is for myself. Hello, Leslie, you're about to meet your brother, yada, yada, yada. I was being all dramatic. I was like, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. And then I got up and went, and I just walked to his door, and I was like, I'm not going to sit in my car and pretend to be late because I need this to happen. I need it to happen now. I'm not going to overthink this. Okay. So I was like, okay. So I went up to his door, I texted him, I said, I'm outside. And I was so nervous to like see him. I just didn't know what to expect. And he's like coming, and then he opens the door, and we looked at each other and we just start laughing. Like, I don't know what we were supposed to do, but like, we just looked at each other. We started laughing, and we like hugged, and then we didn't say anything for like 30 seconds. Like, it was so awkward. Like, we just did not know. We both clearly had no idea what to say. We walk in, and I'm like, thanks. He's like walking me to like his house, like in the door. And guys, I walk in, and it's like beautiful and clean and everything, and in the background he's playing folklore, like The One is playing by Taylor Swift. And I was like, you like Taylor Swift? And he's like, this is my favorite album of all time. And I was like, what? He's like, folklore is my favorite album of all time. I was like, I was listening to folklore on the way here. I was like, I love Taylor Swift. He's like, oh, I've loved her like since her first album. I was like, you're a Swiftie? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, I just went to the Eras tour. And I was like, wait, me too. And he's like, what? And he pulls out videos of him at the Eras tour. And I was so overwhelmed. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I had no idea. That, like, no, and you have no, like, I couldn't, like, we were talking, and like, I like, within the first like 10 minutes, I was already crying, trying to tell him how overwhelmed I was, and he like brought me tissues, and I'm like, I'm just like, and then I would stop talking, and I'd be like, I just can't believe you're a Swiftie. And he's like laughing. He's like, yeah, no. And he was like breaking down like when he really fell in love with her. And he's like, no, I really liked her during her Red era, and 1989 was great. Lover was all right. And he's like, but folklore, like something changed, right? And he's like, her lyricism is absolutely incredible. Like the way her storytelling, like the twist at the end of like The Last Great American Dynasty. And I was like, what am I listening to? What am I listening to? No, dude, I couldn't believe it, guys. So no, it was so, and he like perfectly thought about the ambience of like the way we were like talking was crazy. Like sorry, when we were speaking, like the volume of how loud Taylor Swift was, like it was perfect. I was like, so in my feels, and I would get interrupted because I was like, I'd hear like, invisible string come on or something, and I was like, but it was in the background. It was like this perfect level volume for talking. No, I couldn't believe it was, yeah. Anyway, so it was crazy. We just started talking, and we were like, we didn't even know where to begin. And the thing is, I felt like I could just tell him, I was like, I don't even know what to say to you. And he's like, yeah, me too. And he's like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't recognize your face. Like, it's weird to like look at you, because like, he's just like, I need to get used to your voice and your face. And I'm like, me too. Like, I'm not used to you. And then he'd talk about our mom, and he'd be like, so my mom or my dad, and he's like, sorry, I mean like our mom. And he's like, I've never said that in my whole life. And I was like, yeah, I've also never. So we would talk about our mom or our dad, but we didn't know how to say our mom, because I have, and he has never said those things. Like, we would, if you think about it, like, why would I ever say our mom or our dad? So we were struggling through it. He would just stop doing it. He's just like, you know what? It's going to be hard for me. I'm just going to say mine. And I was like, that's okay. Like, me too. Anyways, it was so weird. It was so weird. We talked for 3 hours. He made dinner. It was so good. I cried. I was telling him about streaming, and he was such a good listener, and he was so like emotionally intelligent about it all. And he's like, Leslie, I knew what you were doing a little bit, because during Among Us, like during that era, because I was like, do you know anything? Do you know like who anybody is? And he's like, list off some people. And I was like, do you know who like Pokimane is? Do you know who like Valkyrie is? He's like, yeah. And I was like, Toast? He's like, yeah. He's like the Asian dude. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I was like, do you know who like Mizkif or Ludwig? And he's like, I think I've seen some of their stuff. Yeah. He's like, I was just like listing off streamers that might like set something off, and he knew all of them, but he's like, I'm not familiar, but he's like placing them kind of just, it was so interesting to hear his like perspective on it. He was just like, he had like heard of things, or he like the way he would associate certain like buzzwords, and like, I was like, yeah, that guy. Anyways, so he was like, I knew of you because he's like, I knew you were doing something because you showed up on my like TikTok, like, he's like, your Among Us stuff. And then he's like, I know that girl. He's like, that's my sister. And he's like, I didn't know too much, I didn't follow too much, but like I could tell like objectively it was like funny stuff. Like, he's like, I didn't watch it, but I knew it was you, and I knew you were doing something. So I was laughing so hard. He's like, Leslie, he's like, it's so funny that you found success as a gamer. He just burst out like laughing, like hysterically. He's like, just knowing how much mom like would like shut it down and like not let me play games and not let us play games. He's like, it's just so funny how you he's like, this is the best thing ever. And then and then we just talked, and he was telling me about his friends and how he like just it was so cute. Oh my god, my heart was like exploding. Okay, anyway, so we talked, and then that was it. I don't even remember what we talked about, but it was a lot. And then he gave me some chocolate, and then I left, and we hugged, and then I was like, well, let's hang out again soon. And so since then we've hung out 2 separate times. And is it 2 times? Yeah, we hung out 2 times, each for like 3 hours. I went out with him like 2 weeks ago, I think. 2 weeks ago. And each time it's like we're getting to know each other more and more and more, and we get more and more comfortable. So anyways, that's the news, is that like now I'm friends with my brother. But the funny thing is, like at the last dinner, he's like looking at me, he's like, you know what's weird is like we're basically just like becoming friends. He's like, I don't know anything about you, except he's like, I don't even know. He's like, did you go to like this elementary school? I was like, no, I went to Challenger. He's like, oh my god, see, I didn't even know that. And I was like, and then he's like, where did you go for like college? I was like, UC Irvine. He's like, I think I knew that, but I don't think I did that. He's like, maybe I didn't. And then we were trying to piece together like pieces. I was like, okay, here's what I know about you. And then I was like, so you did this, then you went to this high school and you went to this college. And then like, there's like this 8-year gap where I have no idea what you were doing. And then I know you live here now. So it was so weird. And he's like, we're essentially friends. Like, he's like, I'm meeting you as a friend. Like, we've never fought. We've never had any kind of like relationship like that. Like, I've never had like he's like, I've never fought with you. Like, we don't have a normal sibling relationship. He's like, you're basically a friend that has the same parents as me, grew up in the same house as me, knows all the same like cousins as me. Like we have all the same cousins. But he's like, it's really weird. I was like, yeah, it's really strange. He's like, we're like blood related friends. So both of us are just figuring out how to navigate it. It's really weird because he's outside in the kitchen right now, and we have come home and reverted exactly back to how we were before. The only difference is that when I walked in this time, I hugged him. And then I was like, well, I'm gonna go back to interacting with you how like, basically, we were like, he's like, what are we gonna do when we go to NorCal? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, I don't know how to interact with you when our parents are there. And I was like, me too. He's like, because we have like this set way we interact, which is we don't. We don't interact. And I was like, yeah. So worst case scenario, we just revert back to that and then we can continue catching up after. He's like, I don't feel like we're going home to see each other. And like, he's like, I don't feel like we're going to go home and see each other. I feel like I'm going to see you after the break. And I was like, yeah, me too. I was like, you know what? Let's figure it out. You know, maybe it's weird and maybe it's not. But we literally are so awkward. I came in, I was like, oh, it's my brother. And this is the first time I just was like, hi. And I hugged him and I was like, all right, well, you go back to talking with dad and I'll go back to doing taxes with mom. And that's exactly what we did. So that's what's happening. But it's just funny because it's exactly what I expected would happen. If it works, it works. And then my guess is that we're like talk like this much here because we don't know how to interact around like our family. And then when we go back to LA, we're gonna hang out and be like, well, that was awkward. Let's get back to knowing each other or like learning about each other, and then we'll figure it out. So anyways, it was the best news ever. I didn't want to tell anybody because it was more of like I was figuring out how I felt about it. I didn't even know. I was like, but it was really good news. Like no one would be mad about it. It was just more of like I didn't want to F it up by saying something online and then, you know, I hadn't figured it out myself, and or someone was like, why didn't you tell me, or why are you telling your stream before you're telling me, type of thing. And I'm like, true, you know what, that's fair. So it gave me time to like talk to my friends and talk to my family and share the news with, you know, people in my life. And then, you know, it was very personal, but also just, I'm very happy, very, very happy. Are you more concerned of the reaction or the unknown of what's to come? I guess I'm concerned. I'm not concerned. I'm just like nervous. It's kind of like interesting. I don't know. Like, I was like, how often do we see each other now? Are we just in each other's lives now? Do I meet all your friends? Do you meet all my friends? How do we navigate that? He's like, I don't know. He's like, how often do you feel comfortable meeting? And I was like, I don't know. How about you? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, do you want to meet my friends? I was like, I'd love to. If he's watching this right now, he probably will see this at some point. But I just want to say, like, oh, I asked him, I said, who sent you the clip? And he's like, I don't know. Like the original clip of me and Tina. And he's like, some random person DM'd me on Instagram and said, like, you should watch this. He has no idea. Just some random Instagram account. Why didn't you guys interact before? We just didn't know how to. So some random person, I don't know. Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know who. A random, like, some person probably found his Instagram and just, like, found a clip and was like, yeah. He literally said it was, like, some person he didn't know at all. He just checked his Instagram DMs and there was, like, a DM from somebody. I know, so I don't even know who to thank or who that was, but thanks. That was really cool. Now I'm friends with my brother. Anyways, yeah, it's weird. We're going to go to a big Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow, and I don't even know. Like, my whole family is going to be like, what? You guys don't talk. What's this situation going on, you know? But Tina's just like, oh my gosh. She's like, I'm kind of part of this story. And I was like, you are. You really are. Because the way I think about it is I would have never been able to tell my brother what I said about him to his face. Like, I don't think in any circumstance I would have been comfortable telling him the way I told it to Tina. I don't think I could have ever told my mom or my dad that way. It was almost like the way I told Tina was exactly how I felt, but I would never have been able to convey that to him. Like, I would have been a mess. Like, I would have not been able to say any of those things. I just don't know why. Like, the way when I would speak, or if I were to ever try to, it would never have come out that way. And he's just like, yeah, the way that I heard you tell her was just so, like, genuine. And, like, he's like, and in that way I was like, dang, like, what would it been if I didn't stream? Or, like, right? Like, would I just have, because in my mind, I thought that what would bring us together, as sad as this is like a family death. Like, if my mom or dad passed away, we would probably talk. But that was like, maybe when I'm 60, that would happen. Or, like, you know, that was my genuine, like, how I thought we would talk. I was like, there's no world in which I think I'm going to actually talk to him until something really bad happens, or something really, like, something has to happen for us to talk. I was like, even if I get married, because when I was getting married back in the day, I was like, is my brother coming? I don't think my brother's going to come to my wedding. Like, I don't even think my brother's going to say congratulations. I was, like, thinking about this. I was like, wow, this is sad. Most people have, like, their brother speak at their wedding or something. I don't know when my brother's going to be there. So I was just like, wow, okay. So that's probably not going to bring us together. So what will it be? Right? And yeah. Anyway, so I was just really glad that it all kind of, the pieces all happened. Yeah, it's so strange. So I'm just very happy. I've never had a relationship with my sister. I'm at a point that I never will. Oh my God, like, I really, people would always tell me this. They'll be like, Leslie, it'll happen. And I'm like, no, it won't. But it really will. It could happen. If me and my brother can become friends, I swear you can, like, it's crazy. Like, I just didn't know him at all. Like, I literally didn't know him. But he's a totally normal, he's like a very cool person. Like, I love getting to know him. I'm like, wow, tell me everything about your life. I don't know anything about you. This is awesome. And it's weird because now I can go back in all the coincidences and I'll be like, you worked with Ryan, or like, you knew this person, or like, oh, I found out the craziest thing. I was telling him one time, because he like does product stuff. He works on this. He has this robot. Anyways, he was filming this ad for HyperX, okay? And he filmed with Bella Porch. And I found this out, right? And because I watched, my dad sent me a clip, and my dad was like, you know, Nathaniel filmed this. And I was like, that's Bella in his studio. And he's like, yeah, HyperX like worked with Nathaniel for this. And I was like, uh-oh. Because that means what happens when one day my shoot call time and my shoot call date is at his place and I don't know him. And so I started to panic, and I was like, oh gosh, this is bad. It's gonna be really awkward when they tell me to show up and it's my dang brother who's the photographer, videographer, and I have to like be like, how awkward is that gonna be? So I told my brother this. I was like, dude, I had this big fear, right? Because I was like, you filmed with Bella, right? And I was like, what? I was so scared that you were going to be the person that I was going to go to on set and then see you, and it was going to be really awkward. And then he's like, funny story. I was like, what? He says, funny story is that was supposed to happen. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, so I got like the sheet with the shoot details, and it was your shoot. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, so I got the details, and instead of telling people, I was just like, this is too funny. We're just gonna let it happen. And I was like, what? And then he's like, but it ended up getting canceled. He's like, the shoot got canceled. But he's like, I was gonna let it happen fully. And he's like, it's just too funny that I had to let it happen. And I was like, that is ridiculous. That's ridiculous. He was going to let me show up to his place, not say anything. And it was just going to be him filming me the whole day. And that was what he was. I was like, there's no way. So that was that close to happening. It ended up getting moved to a different place. I think it was maybe the 360 shoot that I did with I think that was the one. I can't remember what it was, but he said like, that was fully scheduled to happen. It was supposed to, and he was going to let it happen. And that is so troll of him. I would have. But I was like, you can't troll me like that when that's our relationship. Like, I would have been in deep anxiety the whole day, like, just freaking out. Like I wouldn't know how to deal with it. I would have just acted like I didn't ever meet him my whole life. But walking in, seeing my dang brother that I don't talk to and haven't talked to my whole life, being the guy that is filming me all day, I might have died. Anyways, so, but he was laughing, telling me that. So, yeah, for the plot. He was doing it for the content. It was just crazy. Is it crazy, isn't it? Okay. Anyways, so, it's crazy. Anyways, I just can't believe it. How it was like, he's like, it's so sick. Like, that's so messed up. Gosh, it would have been funny. Yeah. So, anyways, that's the news.